and how the right to research will be a solution. I arranged my conversation in such a way that first I will try to give you some context about the place that I am. Then I will remind you the silencing moments that Michelle informed us. And I will tell briefly about what silencing means in a community that I am living, especially the humanitarian context. Then I will talk about the right to research, what scholars say, and how it's going to be a solution to us. And I'll try to see the how part in a way that it can be applicable to us. And finally, I'll take the lessons from my own practical experience, especially related to the project that I'm currently doing, which is supported by Imagining Futures. To tell you something about the context, I'm living in Kakuma Refugee Camp, and the Kakuma Refugee Camp is located in Kenya, and it is established in 1992. Survived for the last 3 decades and 2 years. It has more than 200 population, you can see 279,000, and more than 10 nationalities have been there. The form of governance is hybrid, more of humanitarian, for the government support resources, and the Kenyan government. Now here the problem is, we are connected within the humanitarian organization, we are known with our service, but we are a bit disconnected with others. Just to give some example, it may go to extreme. There are populations who are 10 to 80,000 or 90, 60,000 who are recognized as nations and sit in the UN chamber. But there are millions who are between nations, between boundaries, who are really disconnected with the formal type. So that's why the importance of community-based responsibility or community-based agency is important. In this context, I will show how silencing happens and what actually Michel said. Michel said there is silencing happens whenever we research. These silencing moments may be seen in 4 forms. First, when creating a story, when you start gathering facts, some part of the facts get silenced. Let me say, if I want to talk about integration in the camp, I'm leaving the others. I'm ignoring the others. So the moment you select a topic or some fact, we pick one and we leave the other. One moment when we read one, we silence the others. When we start gathering, silencing happens in the middle. When you also assemble facts to create a narrative, we assemble it in such a way that we tell a story in our own way. As we create a story, we silence some part of the reality. At the same time, even though we have archives, a lot of stories, when we pick and use the stories, we leave the others. In that instance, silencing happens. And lastly, when we interpret and see stories in the past, we give meaning. As we give meaning, we give it in such a way that it makes sense to us. In this case, also silencing happens. So Michel was telling us, whenever we create stories, in one or another moment, silencing happens. So we need to take care of it. But in our case, the case may be different, more than that. There are different forms of silencing happens. Just to give my own framing of silencing.
Would it be possible to increase the volume? It's very hard to hear online. Would it be possible to increase the volume?
The main reason that silencing happens in our case is because we give our responsibility to agencies. We are living in a camp, humanitarian organizations are in charge of our life. So when we submit our service, our responsibilities to agencies, we submit our active life. And we live in such a way that the situation is given to us. So we lose the possibility of becoming active participant in our life. Not only becoming active, but even remembering and recording stories becomes difficult, which I'm going to explain. One of my colleagues said like this: we refugees hope for living, but we don't know what our Father in Israel has for us. They are protecting us inside in the camp. Every decision is made for us. But in the outside world, nobody makes decision for you. Make it yourself because you know the type of life you want to take. This is how she framed it. So what I'm claiming here is that as we give our lives to agencies, we don't live the active life. And the way we interpret our life is not in a way that we want. It is in the way what we are told to be. So that, by its nature, silence is part of our stories. What type of silencing that may be? There are three types of silencing that we may observe in the camp. The first one is, as I said, silencing by representation. Humanitarian and organizations that represent us, they are the one who create stories for us. The other form is silencing by domination. Some dominant narratives comes and they override the other stories. The dominant story overshadow the other story. The other one is by perversion. When I say the silencing by representation, this is what I mean. As agencies becomes our agent of life, we create a story, usually two types of stories. One story about our problems, our challenges. They collect this story in such a way that they get support from the organization. So the objective of collecting those stories is to support us. So stories that are not problem or that are not helpful for raising funds becomes silence. The other stories that they may collect to show their performance and to prove that what they have been doing is the right one. In that case, they collect success stories. So all voices that either not recognize their success or doesn't support mobilize funds becomes silence. They become hardly useful for them. So in the process, silencing happens. The other silencing is by domination. Some dominant narratives are out there about refugees. They are always there. So mostly the stories are created in order to support those narratives. You can see, for example, this is the World Economic Forum. One essay or some blog, which is written by an individual who came and saw the camp in a very good way, and he wrote about the economic potential of the camp. Of course, this is part of the story. But if you also see that the camp is a humanitarian setup, and all the business and everything is not relief, work is not there, actual demand is not there. Remittance and other things are the one that fuels the economy. One can easily question this type of generalization. But such type of dominant stories, because they come from the organizations and their organizations have expertise to create a very good narrative, this dominates and silence part of the stories. The other stories are related to perversion, which I call it silencing by perversion. They come, there are humanitarian, etc., as I say. Beyond that, there are so many pockets of authorities. And they also have their own stories, or they want to see their own stories. Stories that contradict their interest, or any stories that contradict the dominant narratives is brought out by fake stories. And these fake stories are targeted to silence or erase the stories that compete or contradict the dominant ones. So in this case, I erasure or an archiving of stories we have. The problem with this type of stories like this, because they are fake or false, they create void. Always, in order to fill that void, continuous fake news should be there. In the process, everybody becomes misled by these fake stories. So what is the solution for this? How can we at least not solve it, counter, at least balance this type of silencing? That's why now the right to research becomes important. Many scholars talk about the right to research in different ways. For example, Derrida said like this: those who control archives have the power over narratives. So it is those who are in archive are the one who has the power. Unfortunately, communities, actually in this case, not only refugee camps, many communities, they don't have their own archives. So the knowledge is there in the dominant archives and the museums. That is the one that guides everything. But if that is the case, according to the Derrida, effective democracy or active citizens cannot be developed. No political power without control of archives, or there is no effective democratization. Arjuna Kodor also said the same thing. The right to research is a special right for democratic citizenship or to build an informed citizen. In this case, it's not about only getting information, it's about also creating information based on the community's context. If that is the case, that active citizenship is there. People challenge, people understand it. Whatever decisions they make it in a because they are informed. Otherwise, they are just becomes a follower, a follower of what is there. Ferrari also said in different ways, especially this is more applicable to us. He said silence is not a genetical or ontological determined condition, but the expression of perverted social, economic, political structure. For our case, it is the humanitarian governance and associated system of the one we call it structure that takes away our agencies. In this case, silencing happens, but we can do, or we can at least bring our voices. How? He also recommended a solution. According to him, the silences should not be a curiosity for the researchers. If I am going to be successful today in my conversation, this is the core part of the message. We should not be a curiosity for the researchers, but be the masters of inquiry and use research as a means of moving beyond silence into a cost to proclaim our own community one. Actually, what's happening is we become what a curiosity for researchers. Mostly wants to know what's happening in camps, what's the problem of refugees, how they are dealing with it. In that case, we become an object to the researchers. But he is challenging this notion so that we become subject to the aspect of our own life and bring out our voice. Now the problem is, it's simple to say it, but how to do it? That is the problem. How to do it? Lewis, 1967, showed us the type of research that can be done in different ways. Still can be done on the community. If research is done on the community, as we said, the community becomes object of an inquiry. Research also can be done for the community. In this case, it is a patient and doctor-like approach. The community brings the problem, the researcher comes and solve it. The other one is with the community, which is some sort of collaboration, and the other one is by the community, the member of community that become active. He suggested these two, and many scholars also suggested these two. But I'm still questioning these two, and I'm going to suggest why. Okay. The problem with the communities is there is no equal power there. There is an unequal power dynamics. And that makes it what? The interaction very challenging, and usually the community, even though they participate, they are passive participants. Why they become participants? Because the traditional knowledge and the scientific knowledge cannot go together. The scientific knowledge, whatever that might be, it is intimidating for us, for the community members. So they eventually submit themselves. The other real challenges in terms of time, in terms of patience of the researchers, and understanding the context. Mostly researchers, when they come, they have limited time, limited resource, and understanding the context requires a lot of time. So these challenges makes it what? Research in the community, even though we say it is more of a mockery. At the end of the day, it becomes what? Either research for the people or research on the people. So what other problem is research by the communities. Communities, they don't have the culture. I can't say that their culture is gradually degraded or taken by the scholars. When I go back and see the past, there was a trial to solve their own problems. But this scholarly or the secular system take away the doing of research to the only the secular system. So the community, the way they used to do it is not there. So there is much reliance on the academia. So researching by the community is also under question. So I'm proposing one, which is researching along the community. What I mean is that creating a community structure so that researchers, instead of coming with their powers and lead them, they become supportive, be behind, and nurture community initiative so that the community try to solve their own problem, research to know themselves and do the way they want. This is very helpful because there will be continuous learning and leads to change. There are so many literature that say that whenever communities are involved, it can easily be translated into action, whatever solution be translated into action. And there is a way of building knowledge. And problem solving becomes sustainable. Now, what is required there in order to do that? We need to nurture people's curiosity, or at least restore the curiosity, the natural curiosity that have, which is taken by this scholarly way of doing it, and provide space, and also give resources the way the academia are getting it. Also have patience and having a sense of humility. And also it is good to understand that sometimes specialization may not always be helpful, especially when you think of the community who have diverse problems. How I suggest this one is not from my mind, but it's from the experience that I have developed since 2019. I attended the history dialogue course and I did oral history research with the community, and within the community. This oral history research was designed in such a way that I should do everything with the community. That was very helpful to help me develop the research skill within the local context, understand with my colleagues, and come up with something. The project that I'm doing, the Imaginary Future Archiving project, is also the same. We are given resources and allowed to do the way we want. Even though there are still some methodological problems that the system wants us to do, and the ability and the interest that we want to do, there are still a methodological problem, but that has been very helpful. In the organization that I'm working in, the Institute Worldwide Learning, the education system is framed in the form of accompaniment. Students learn based on their own pace, based on their own way, and the job of the facilitator is to accompany them, to follow them. So there is no much a strict standard to make everything according to the plan. What really matters is their pace, their interest, and their situation. That accompaniment helps to move everybody up, so that one go and the other and not remain. So that's why with this experience, I'm suggesting that let research be along the community. What does it practical sense mean? For example, actually, one day you may come with a research idea to remote areas. You may have your own topic, which is approved topic, methodology, and everything. But as you can also come to create a space for the people who are there in the community, do their research. So as you do yours, the community also can do the same with a similar topic or related topic. Within that context, we grow together. That's my suggestion. So this is what I have been doing to come back to my specific research. My research topic was related to archiving the permanent temporariness of Kakuma Refugee Camp, which has stayed for 3 decades. What we wanted to do is to collect untold stories. We called them stories behind the story, stories which were not really told or in one way or another silenced. And the other objective to capture some memorable pictures based on stories and to produce some documentaries. The methodology that we used, actually, it may not be a methodology, but the approach that we used is like create a single story based on our life experience. We asked people who have lived there for 10 or more years to tell us stories. In order to tell that stories, because it's difficult to come up with the stories considering our experience, especially single story, we give them 5 days to prepare. And usually we expect a story that lasts 10 to 15 minutes, or if it is written, a 2-page story. Once they have done those, they have prepared those stories, we conduct a group storytelling session. 5 of them, they come together and tell their stories. With their consent, we record those stories. After the session is done, researchers reflect and write some summaries. Counseling support is there in case emotional problems are there. And the documentary that we tend to do is based on the stories. To make it more participatory, we collect stories. Based on stories, we see some pattern, and we prepare the documentary so that it becomes representative. And also, we try to make it as much as possible representative in terms of location, nationality, and age. These are the storytelling sessions that we have conducted in different ways. We conducted around 34 storytelling sessions. Some of them are done in a very funny way. They enjoyed telling story each other. Some of them were a bit challenging, even they didn't want to be seen because of the story that they did. So we didn't record their face. Some of them, as you can hear with tension, they wanted to be seen. They wanted to tell, but their voice was very strong. Some of them were also wanted to be formal, and they did it in a formal way. So the whole diversity was there. What are the lessons that we learned? One of the important things that we learned is narrating a single story in a coherent way requires practice, or we lost that actually traditional ability. Actually, here it may require more studies, but we recognize that we are not able to tell a single story. Even if we researchers, when we started, where we are trying to build ourselves, there was really a problem to tell a coherent story. So much interruptions going here and there. And in general, there is an inclination to tell everything about the camp, not a single story, which is difficult for us to manage. And also our memory, this fragmented, recollecting becomes a challenge. And the stories were also shaped by different motives and expectations. Some use it to complain, some use it for advocacy purpose, and whatever. Also, they consider the consequence of telling the stories. We are living in the camp, stories have their own values. So they also consider the consequence. So censorship, self-censorship was there, reconstructing the stories was there. And as storytellers said, our attention was also limited. Those who were participating in them. And because of several reasons, we didn't get sufficient attention as we expect. Language was a problem. As I said earlier, dominant stories really matter. This is a very good point for us. Many of the storytellers, especially youth, they narrated their story about education. But then when they narrated about their education, when they tell the way they tell about their learning shows something which is really distressing. But the way they tell it as if it is good. So they don't want to go to move beyond the dominant, and they want to appreciate. But what they are really telling is the substantive part tells that their education has a question. That shows how dominant narrative plays in our narrative structure. The other lesson is the model that we had at the retailing sessions. After they tell stories, they get some feedback, and there was a retailing session. But that one didn't go well. Here, the lesson we learned that we could have used the traditional way of storytelling. The method that we designed didn't fit with the interest of the people, because listening to stories again becomes a bit boring. The other is we give some compensation for their time because it was positive and negative. We learned that there. The other thing is the place of storytelling also matters. In a place that they did in a natural setting at home or at their village, it was okay. But in a place that we organized it becomes more formal, and the stories also becomes more formal. Also, the way we facilitate stories matters. In one of the sessions, the researcher tries to note down some of the things. Is that if the story is converted into complaint on something else. In general, this is what I say. Using the traditional story methods may help a lot. What this means is that using a community way of doing may help a lot. And that's why the right research will help us. And that's why I'm saying that let us do the right research as you do also your own research. That's the topic that I brought to you. Thank you.